Last week, I held a group office hours in Better Husband Academy where it felt like every man on the call was in the same place. Guys are sharing wins from the previous week, and they're awesome. One man says, almost like he can't believe he's saying it out loud, that he was able to share his emotions in front of his wife for the first time, something she's been asking for. Another guy who normally disappears after conflict says that after an argument that ended poorly, he was able to reconnect with his wife. He didn't shut down, and he stayed grounded enough to repair it. And you can hear the pride in his voice, like he surprised himself. Then a third guy talks about catching the moment his body wanted to go into fight, flight, or fix, and he literally just paused, took a breath, and chose to respond instead of react. And then there's the guy who started planning date nights, a family vacation, the things his wife had always wanted him to do. And he admits it felt vulnerable because if I lead, I can get criticized, but he did it anyway. So the call starts with momentum, proof, evidence. You can't listen to those stories and say this work doesn't transform you. And then one guy finally jumps in and says, okay, but what do you do when it's going well and then you just ease off? Things get busy and you forget. He tells this familiar story, 2 or 3 good weeks, the house feels lighter, his wife's shoulders are down, he's showing up, he's doing the things, and then he slows down. It's not like he wants to sabotage it. It's almost worse than that because it's not even a decision. It's complacency. It's distraction. It's autopilot. And his wife will say something like, I feel like you're getting comfortable. And that stings because in his head, he's thinking, I'm trying, or I was trying. Didn't you see it? Didn't it count? And I bet you know what happens inside a man right there because most of us do the same thing. Part of you wants to defend yourself. Part of you wants to shut down. Part of you wants to go, fine, then nothing I do matters, so why bother? But as he's talking, you can hear the real question underneath it. How do you not coast once things improve? That's the whole issue. Most men know exactly what they need to do when the marriage is struggling, and they can do it. But typically, only when things are on fire, when she's loud about it, when there's a consequence to not doing it. What they're missing is the bridge between I know what to do and I keep doing it when the urgency fades. And that bridge is accountability. The kind of accountability that keeps you honest when nothing feels urgent. So the good stretch doesn't become a fluke, it becomes your standard. If you're the kind of guy who can lock in for 2 weeks when things feel fragile, maybe you show up more present, more patient, more intentional, and then you blink and you're back to half effort, this episode is for you. Because what your wife calls getting comfortable is simply you losing your structure. It's you letting the urgency do the heavy lifting, and when the pressure drops, your defaults quietly take the wheel again. Distraction, fixing, withdrawal, overthinking, shutting down. So here's what I'm going to give you today. A way to study your good weeks so you stop treating them like luck and start treating them like evidence. A simple method to replace the patterns you keep trying to stop with one move you can actually repeat. And the missing piece that turns awareness into consistency. By the end of this episode, you'll have one clear weekly practice, one replacement move for when you start going back to autopilot, and a way to stay consistent after the crisis fades, so your wife doesn't have to wonder which version of you she's going to get next week. Stick around. This is going to be a good one. Welcome to Better Husband, the podcast that helps you answer the question, how can I be a better husband? I'm Angelo Santiago, a men's marriage and relationship coach, and every week I bring you practical insights to help you strengthen your marriage and become the best husband you can be. So back to the office hour moment. After that guy says it, how do you not coast once things improve? You can feel the whole group lean in because every guy on that call knows the feeling he's describing. It's not like you wake up one morning and think, I'm going to start phoning it in. I'm going to slowly hand my wife the emotional load again. I'm going to go back to my old moves and act surprised when she's disappointed. Instead, you feel relief first. Things are finally calmer. She's not upset today. We're not in that tense season. And your body takes that as permission to relax. Your nervous system goes, cool, we don't have to stay sharp. And the problem is your marriage doesn't experience that as relaxing. It experiences it as a step backwards, a return to the way things were. Essentially, what he was saying was, we had a strong stretch, like 2 or 3 weeks. I was showing up and then I let off the gas. Stuff fell away. And in the past, when she calls it out, I shut down. This time, I'm trying not to do that, but I don't know how to keep momentum once it's good. And I want you to notice the honest frustration in that, because it's not the pain of not knowing what to do. It's the pain of knowing you can do it and still not trusting yourself to keep doing it. That's the part most of us don't admit to. And so I asked the guys in the room to share their thoughts, and they start chiming in. You hear the real reason the slide happens. One guy says it feels like attention issues. He's not trying to self-diagnose, he's just describing his experience. He can lock in when there's a crisis, and then when life is normal again, he forgets the practices. He's simply saying, I lose structure. Another guy talks about conflict. He says when things get tense, he defaults to withdrawal. He'll go quiet. And then another guy brings up the mental replay. He gets stuck in a loop after conflict. He runs the conversation back over and over, her tone, his tone, what he said, what he didn't say, what it means, whether it was fair. And eventually it turns into one of three stories. I'm the bad guy, she's the bad guy, or I'm blowing it again. So I'm sitting there listening to these guys, and here's what's happening inside of me as the coach. Part of me wants to give them a clean checklist, like do these 5 things every day and you'll be fine. But here's how that usually goes. If it's too much, they won't do it. If it's vague, they might do it for 3 days and then think it's not working. So instead, I start where the real leverage is. I say, okay, before we talk about what you need to do, we have to talk about what you already proved you can do. Because that's what those wins were. They were evidence. And the way those guys describe their wins is exactly what wives want, but rarely know how to ask for. They want emotional access, real human vulnerability. They want repair, coming back instead of disappearing. They want regulation, responding instead of reacting or fixing. They want leadership, initiating, planning, carrying the weight without demanding it. So I say, let's take a look at the good stretch. Think of the things you did during those weeks that made the marriage feel better, not what you meant to do, what you actually did. Because those wins weren't luck. They were proof that you can actually show up in a way that changes the atmosphere in your home. And that's the part I wanted the guys to feel in their bodies for a second. You're not starting from zero. You're not guessing if you're capable. You already did it. So the real question isn't, can you do it? The real question is, how do you make it consistent? How do you keep showing up like that when things aren't on fire, when she isn't pushing, when life feels normal again and your nervous system wants to coast? That's what we're going to unpack today. When your wife says you're getting complacent, most guys hear it like an accusation, like she's saying you don't care, like she's saying you're lazy, like she's saying the last couple of weeks didn't matter. And that's why it hits a nerve. Because you're sitting there thinking, no, I was trying, I was showing up, I was doing the thing, I'm not the same guy I was a month ago. But here's what I want you to see without getting defensive. Most complacency is you exhaling after progress and not realizing that when you exhale, the structure you built to get the progress disappears with it. It's the moment when things feel calmer and your nervous system takes that as a signal to say, we can relax now. And relaxing isn't a problem. The problem is what happens right after relaxing. You stop doing the small things that were keeping you connected. You stop initiating. You stop checking in. You stop holding yourself to the practices that were working. Not because you made some decision to pull away, but because your default starts driving again. And this is where a lot of men get confused. They think the issue is motivation. They think the issue is discipline. They think the issue is, why can't I just keep doing what I know works? But the deeper issue is this. A lot of men only know how to be consistent when the relationship is in a crisis. When the house is on fire, you lock in. When she's at the edge, you get serious. When there's a consequence on the line, you suddenly have focus and follow through. But when things calm down, you unconsciously hand your marriage back to quote unquote normal. And normal is whatever you've practiced for years. So from your side, it feels like I'm finally getting a chance to breathe. But from her side, it often feels like, here we go again. Because her nervous system is looking for one thing, consistency. Consistency is what makes her feel safe. 2 good weeks don't erase the history. They raise the hope. So when you ease off, she doesn't see it as he's human. She sees it as I can't trust this to last. And I know that sucks, especially if you've actually been trying and it's been hard and you're proud of how you showed up, but it also gives you clarity. Because if complacency is really a lack of structure after progress, then the fix isn't to beat yourself up. The fix is to get curious. What was the structure you had during the good stretch? What were you doing differently without even realizing it that made the marriage feel better? Because that's the doorway. Before we talk about accountability, before we talk about systems, before we talk about consistency, we have to do something most men never do. The exact thing I did with those men in office hours. We have to stop treating your good weeks like luck and start treating them like evidence. Most men only study their marriage when it's going badly, when there's distance, when there's tension, when she's frustrated, when you're in the doghouse. And then when things finally start going well, you do what any normal human would do. You enjoy it, you breathe, you tell yourself, okay, we're good. And that's exactly where the old ways sneak in. Because you treat the good stretch like a reward instead of a blueprint. Like it happened because the timing was right, or because you were finally in the mood, or because life was calmer. But what you and I both know is this: those good weeks didn't just happen to you. You created them. Maybe you don't even have the language for it yet, but you were showing up differently and it had an impact. So the whole point of the good stretch audit is simple. Stop guessing what worked. Turn the good stretch into evidence you can actually build on. And I want you to hear the spirit of this, because some guys do this like a performance review. That's not it. This is not you trying to prove you're a good guy. This is you getting honest about the specific behaviors that change the atmosphere in your house so you can repeat them on purpose. And here's how you do it. Step 1, name what you did. A lot of men here stay vague. They'll say things like, I was more present, or I was trying harder. And that sounds nice, but it doesn't help you repeat it. So instead, you ask yourself, what did I actually do during those weeks that I wasn't doing before? And keep it simple, 2 or 3 things. Maybe you circled back after tension instead of disappearing, or slowed down and listened instead of fixing, or initiated time together without being asked, or owned something quickly instead of defending it. Or maybe you stayed regulated enough to keep your tone steady. And you did it all because you were more intentional and your marriage felt it. Step 2. Name the impact on you, on her, and on the marriage. This is the part most men skip, and it's why the change doesn't stick. When you show up better, it usually does something to you first. You have more self-respect. You feel less on edge at home. You're not bracing for conflict, and you're not carrying that low-grade dread that shows up when you know you're not doing what you said you would. You actually enjoy the experience, and the house feels different too. There's more ease, there's more warmth, there's more room to be human without everything turning into a fight, there's more patience, and all of that matters because your nervous system needs to learn this isn't just about being a good husband, this makes my life better too. Step 3, ask her one question. Not 3 questions, not a survey, one question that keeps it collaborative and real. And it's this: the last couple of weeks felt different. What really worked for you, and what do you want us to keep? That's it. And then listen. Because here's the truth. Men guess wrong all the time. We assume the big gesture mattered when it was actually our simple tone. We assume it was the date night when it actually was a small repair we initiated. We assume that she wants more words when what she wants is clean steadiness. So her answer becomes a mirror, not a grade, a mirror. It shows you what was most meaningful on her side. So you're not building your new normal off what you hope she liked or what you think she liked. You're building it off what actually worked for her. And once you have that, you listen, you let it sink in, and you look at how you can continue to do it. Now you're not chasing a mysterious what does she want? You're not waiting for motivation. You're working with evidence. And this is where it gets interesting, because at this point, a lot of guys have a moment of clarity and frustration all at the same time. Clarity because they can finally see what worked, and frustration because they realize, I already know how to do this. I already did it. So why don't I keep doing it? Why do I go right back to the old baseline the moment life feels normal? That's what we're going into next, because the problem isn't usually that you don't know what works. The problem is what happens inside you the moment you feel pressure, criticism, fatigue, or emotional intensity, and your default kicks back in. That's where consistency gets decided. So now you've got something most men don't have: clarity. You're not guessing anymore. You can point to the behaviors that made those weeks feel different. You can see the impact. You can even hear what mattered to her. And that creates this honest question. If I already know how to do this, why don't I keep doing it? Here's the answer most guys don't want, but it's freeing once you see it. You're trying to build consistency on motivation, and motivation alone is a terrible foundation. Motivation is mood dependent, energy dependent, stress dependent, sleep dependent, whether work was smooth today dependent. So if the plan is I'm going to keep showing up like this as long as I feel like it, you're going to keep having good stretches and then returning to default. because default doesn't require motivation. Default is what you do when you're tired. Default is what you do when you feel criticized. Default is what you do when your chest tightens and your brain starts arguing and your body starts trying to protect you. That's why a lot of men make these big, sincere statements like, I'm going to stop shutting down. I'm going to stop getting defensive. I'm going to stop fixing. I'm going to stop spiraling. And they mean it. But your nervous system doesn't hear stop as a plan. So you can have all the insight in the world and still do the same move on Tuesday night when she's disappointed and your body goes, get out, prove you're right, fix it, shut it down, whatever. That's why consistency isn't an identity thing. It's a practice thing. It's what you do in the moment your default shows up. And this is the missing concept for a lot of guys. You don't stop a pattern, you replace it. Because if you don't replace it, it leaves a vacuum. And the vacuum gets filled by whatever you've practiced for years. So the real question isn't how do I stop the old thing? It's what do I do instead in the exact moment the old thing wants to step in? That's where a replacement move comes in. A replacement move is not a personality makeover. It's not you becoming calm and enlightened. It's one simple thing you can do when you feel yourself getting pulled into the old version of you. Here's what that looks like in real life. If your default is shutting down, the replacement isn't talk it out perfectly. It's staying connected enough to not disappear. It might be as simple as just asking a question instead of assuming what she's trying to say. Or it might be as simple as asking for a quick timeout so you can center yourself and then come back to rebuild the connection. If your default mode is fix, the replacement isn't more advice. It's a pause to stop you from turning her feelings into a problem to solve. It might sound like, do you want help or do you want me to just listen? If your default is getting stuck in your head after conflict, the replacement isn't thinking harder. It's interrupting the loop long enough to get back to choice so you don't carry yesterday's argument into today's marriage. Because the point of a replacement move is to be simple, memorable, and repeatable, small enough that you actually use it when you're activated, not when you're calm and listening to a podcast. It's for when you're 10 seconds away from doing what you always do. And once you have a replacement move, you're not relying on motivation anymore. You're relying on practice. But there's still one more piece, and this is where most men hit the wall again. Even with a good replacement move, you can still fall off when you're alone because the moment urgency fades, the old story comes back. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll get back to it next week. It's not that bad right now. And that's where the bridge actually shows up. That's where accountability stops being a buzzword and starts being the thing that holds your practice in place. I'm hosting a free live Better Husband community call, and I want you there. It's on March 25th at 8:30 p.m. on Zoom, and you can register at joinbetterhusband.com. We're going to be focusing on ownership, integrity, and repair, and here's the best part. We'll do a live Q&A, so if you've ever had a question you wanted to ask me directly about a conversation you're stuck in, a pattern you keep repeating, or what to say after a rough moment, this is the place. Go to joinbetterhusband.com now to save your seat. I'm going to be teaching, connecting with all of you, and answering questions live. Again, join betterhusband.com, and I'll see you on March 25th. All right, back to the episode. So now you've got the pieces a lot of guys never build. You can see the dynamic, you can name what worked, you've got a replacement move for when your default shows up, and still, most men will fall off. Because when the urgency fades, nothing is holding the practice in place. And this is where I want to reframe accountability in a way that actually fits how men operate. Accountability isn't punishment. It's not your wife keeping tabs. It's not someone barging at you. It's not prove you're serious. Accountability is visibility. It's you saying, this is what I'm practicing, and letting another man see it. Because something changes when your commitments aren't living in your head anymore. When it's just you and your thoughts, your mind can negotiate with itself all day. I'll do it tomorrow. It was a busy week. She was in a mood anyway. It's not that big of a deal right now. But when you've said it out loud to someone who wants to see you win, the excuses don't hit the same because you're part of something. Because you don't want to keep being the guy who means well and doesn't follow through. Because you know someone is going to look you in the eyes and say, how'd it go? And if it didn't go, you're not getting punished. You're getting support and truth. This is one of the biggest gifts men give to each other when it's real. Someone to lift you up when you fall and someone to call you in when you back away. Not in a disrespectful way, not in a tough guy way, in the simple way a good man does it. Hey, this is the third week you told me you were going to do that. What's going on? And that question matters because it doesn't just push you to try harder, it pushes you to get honest about what's underneath. Is it fear of conflict, fear of being criticized, resentment you haven't admitted, a nervous system that's constantly on edge, a part of you that doesn't fully believe it's worth it? You don't find that stuff when you're alone. You find it in a relationship with another man who's not judging you, but also not letting you hide. And this is why accountability can't be your wife. Because when your wife has to be the one tracking whether you followed through, it poisons the whole thing. Now she's your manager. Now she's your mother. Now she's the one who has to remind you, and then you resent her reminders, and then she feels even more alone. Accountability is supposed to protect the marriage from that dynamic, not create more of it. So the simplest version of this system is this. You choose one practice you're working on, you choose one replacement you're training, and you make it visible to another man. That's it. And the reason it works is because consistency isn't just about willpower, it's about standards. It's about being in a space where men are practicing the same kind of things, messing up, owning it, and coming back. Where it's normal to say, yeah, I didn't do great this week, and not get laughed at. Where it's normal to say, I shut down, and get challenged with love. Where it's normal to say, I'm trying, and then have somebody ask, okay, what are you practicing? That's why community matters, because community turns growth into a shared language, shared standards, shared honesty. And if you're thinking, yeah, that sounds great, but I don't have that. Well, now you can. I've decided to completely rebuild Better Husband Academy. It's not just content or a course anymore. It's not just videos and ideas. It's a community-focused experience where you can practice this with other men, where you can be seen, supported, and held to what you say you want. If you've checked it out before and you weren't sure if it was for you, I want to invite you to check it out again. And if this is your first time hearing about it, go to betterhusbandacademy.com and join us. The Academy is now an opportunity to step into community for a year, learn from the Academy course, join multiple live calls per week, set commitments, celebrate wins, support each other when we slip, and do it all surrounded by other men going through the same thing. Because accountability is the bridge. It's the thing that turns awareness and action into consistency. And consistency is what turns a good stretch into a new normal your wife can actually trust. All right. As we wrap up, we're going to close the way we do every episode. I want to give you one awareness question to sit with, a few action steps to practice this week, and one accountability move so you don't try to do this in isolation. For awareness, I want you to answer this honestly, and not in the way you wish it was, but in the way it's actually been. When things start going better in your marriage, what's the first small thing you stop doing that starts the slide back into the old normal? Now, your action steps for this week are simple. 1, get honest about your pattern. Where have you coasted in the past? Don't explain it away, just own it. Ownership and integrity are the foundation for any real repair and change in your marriage. 2, do the good stretch audit. Look back at a recent stretch that felt better, even if it was just a week or two. Name what you did that helped. Keep it concrete. Then name the impact. What did it change in you? What did it change in the atmosphere at home? 3, ask her what mattered. If that stretch was recent enough, ask her one clean question. What did you really like about that time, and what should we keep? And then listen. Let it land. Anchor in the fact that good is possible and it's not random. And 4, make one commitment. Pick one thing you're going to practice this week, not 10 things. One thing that's small enough to repeat, but meaningful enough to matter. And here's the accountability step. Don't keep that commitment private. Tell one person what you're practicing this week, a friend, a brother, another man you trust, not so he can police you, not so he can shame you, but so it's real, just so someone else can say, how'd it go? And you don't have to do the whole thing alone in your head. And if you don't have that kind of community, I want you to know this is exactly why I've rebuilt Better Husband Academy into a community-focused experience. Yes, the course is still there. Office hours are still there. But now there are more calls, a place to share wins, a place to ask questions, a place to get support, and a place to practice this with other men who are doing the same work. You can learn more and join us at betterhusbandacademy.com. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this episode, it's this. A good stretch isn't the finish line, it's evidence. You don't need more pressure to become consistent. You need a structure that holds when life is normal again, and you need other men in your corner so you don't start negotiating with yourself the moment things calm down. Make your commitment this week. Say it out loud. Let someone see it, and then follow through one day at a time. I'm Angelo Santiago. You're listening to Better Husband. Thank you for being here. Make your commitment for this week. Find a way to stay accountable so you don't slip back into the old normal, and do what needs to be done to become a better husband. I'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, I have a quick request. If you've ever gotten any value from the show and you want the show to continue to grow, to access bigger and more knowledgeable guests, and to keep providing you with more ways that you can be a better husband in your marriage, simply leave a rating and a review if you're listening on Apple or Spotify. It only takes a few seconds, and those reviews go a long way in attracting more experts and bigger guests to the show. So if you're feeling up to it, as a favor to me, I'd love to see a rating and a review from you. Thank you so much for being a listener and all your support.